like to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and join us for the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to report out on our closed session. Item C2A was a student matter pursuant to Education Code Section 48918A, student case number 1617007. Information was exchanged and no action was taken.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we have a motion. Sorry.
I move that student 1617007 is in violation of Education Code 48900B, possessed, sold, and or otherwise furnished a firearm, knife, explosive, or other dangerous object, unless in case of possession of an object of this type, the pupil has obtained written permission to possess the item from certificated employee, which is concurred in by the principal or the designee of the principal, that the presence of the pupil on school grounds constitutes a continuing danger to the physical safety of students, staff, and or others. I further move that student 1617007 be expelled from Carpinteria Unified School District for the remainder of semester 2 of the 2016-2017 school year and semester 1 of the 2017-18 school year, that the expulsion be suspended so that the student may complete the remainder of semester 2 of the 2016-17 school year on Carpinteria Unified School District's district instruction program and semester 1 of the 2017-18 school year at Carpinteria High School, Rincon Continuation High School, or Foothill Alternative High School. In order for the expulsion order to terminate at the end of semester 1 of the 2017-18 school year, student 1617007 must successfully complete a rehabilitation plan, which includes, but is not limited to, satisfactory behavior, attendance, and academic progress during the remainder of semester 2 of the 2016-17 school year and semester 1 of the 2017-18 school year. Satisfactory participation in CADA's Teen Court Peer Review Program, satisfactory participation and completion with parents in CADA's Parent Program or similar pre-approved family counseling. Satisfactory participation and completion in the START program, school-based mental health counseling, or pre-approved counseling. 60 hours of community service. This 60-hour obligation is in addition to and not in lieu of or partial substitution for the 60-hour community service requirement for graduation from Carpinteria Unified School District. Written confirmation of successful participation in and completion of all programs and terms of the rehabilitation plan must be submitted to CUSD Pupil Services prior to board consideration of termination in the expulsion order. If student number 1617007 successfully completes the rehabilitation plan and submits all written documentation, the student may request termination of the expulsion order. And satisfactory behavior, attendance, and academic progress is to be determined by CUSD administration.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to item C2B, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. This is in pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D and Section 4 instead of the typo that went in 54956.9B. And the number of cases are 1. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. And then item C2C was conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives, Maureen Fitzgerald, Darlene Avalos, Jamie Pursoon, Andy Schaefer, and Jacqueline Favre. Employee organization was cause. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. And item C2D is public employee discipline dismissal release, Government Code Section 54957. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 9th, 2017.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have more minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the special board meeting of May 15th, 2017.
Second?
The first meeting and the second meeting?
Yeah.
We had 2 meetings that day.
Want me to amend my motion?
Yes.
I move we approve the minutes of the special board meetings 1 and 2 of May 15th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda and consent agenda.
I actually had 2 things I wanted to pull from the
Second.
Okay, I second it.
All right.
I have 2 things I'd like to pull from
Yep.
the consent agenda. Item D9 and D11.
So D9, D11. Okay, so D9 will go into business operations facilities. Yep. D9? Yeah? Okay.
Both would, right?
D9 and D11 would go under personnel, so that would go under J. Okay. All right. All those in favor, this is a roll call for the amended,
Maureen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Andy?
aye.
And I'm aye.
Okay, we don't have a student report this evening, so we'll move on to Jamie.
Good evening, Board. With just 2.5 weeks to go, all district staff and students are maintaining a focus on teaching and learning, or we're trying, to finish out the year. We look forward to the many graduations and promotions that are scheduled. So for the public's information, I'd like to share that schedule. The Carpinteria Family School promotion and graduation ceremony will be on June 2nd from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. At Canalino Schools campus. Rincon High School, June 6th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Lions Park. Summerlin School, June 8th at 5 p.m. at Summerlin Presbyterian Church. Aliso School, June 9th, 8:45 to 9:45 in the Quad. Canalino School, June 9th from 10 to 11 we're actually having it outside this year because of capacity issues in our cafeteria. Carpinteria Middle School, June 9th, 11:45 to 1:15 at the basketball courts. And Carpinteria High School, June 9th at 6 p.m. at Memorial Stadium. So with some of you that are coming to all of those, we'll be traveling in a caravan from one place to the next. On June 9th, we have a busy day. The LCAP writing team continues to work on the final touches of the plan, and I will meet with parent and student representatives from each school site on June 1st at 5 p.m. to discuss the draft plan and gain their feedback. And last night we held the first parent meeting for families who are entering into the inaugural class of the dual language immersion program at Canalino. It was incredibly well attended, bursting at the seams, and heartwarming to feel the forming of a community of folks trying something new and doing it together, both languages. So our teacher is slated to teach the 2 Guinness classes. Gabriela Reyes and Melody Aguila continue to do visits of local dual language programs and request to attend the National Dual Language Immersion Conference in Palm Springs in this June. We look forward to returning to the board in the fall with updates on the progress of this exciting new program. And that's my report.
Thanks, Jamie. Public comment?
Yes, we do. The first speaker is Monica Solorzano.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Monica Solorzano, and I'm a Carpinteria resident and mother of an Aliso Elementary School kindergartner. I'm here to voice my staunch support for Dr. Fox and my concern with the actions of several school board members in relation to Dr. Fox's position as principal of our school. As a member of the Aliso Elementary School Site Council, I've seen firsthand what a thoughtful, positive, and innovative thinker Dr. Fox is, and my daughter has directly benefited from some of the policies that Dr. Fox has helped to implement, like the free grab-and-go recess snack program, for example. Dr. Fox is a visible and engaged member of the community, whether at morning drop-off or the many school events throughout the year, like the Santa Store or the recent Science Day. She's always there taking pictures, greeting parents, and basically being involved with students. And from my perspective on this school-wide committee that I sit on, I can see that she enjoys the support and gratitude of parents and teachers alike at our school. As an Aliso parent, I was dismayed to learn about the lack of transparency and accountability displayed by some of the school board members in attempting to bring about the resignation of Dr. Fox. These school board members do not speak for all the parents, teachers, and students of the Aliso community in this matter, which is why I chose to speak today. I just wanted my statements to be heard. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
The next speaker is Tim Macias.
So I'll be speaking on behalf of Samantha Morvay, who was a 2-3 teacher over at Summerlin School this year. To whom it may concern, my name is Samantha Morvay, and I am reaching out to voice my utmost support for Dr. Michelle Fox, principal of Summerlin and Aliso Schools. I had the pleasure of being Summerlin Schools 2-3 classroom teacher from August 2016 through February 2017. As a first-year teacher, I was fully submerged in something that most teachers still have nightmares about. I was in my first-year survival mode. Google phases of a first-year teachers for more information. My anticipation and excitement to begin the year and try out all the fancy teaching techniques that I spent so much time learning about started to falter when I realized that I had some very unique challenges within my classroom. Dr. Michelle Fox was a constant, and I mean constant, pillar of support for me as I navigated through the difficulties presented within my classroom, and her support allowed me to put my best foot forward for the amazing students in my class. Though she was also putting out fires at Aliso School, a school of over 400 children, she never once made me feel as though I should be taking my questions elsewhere, or that she did not have the time to drive over to help me if I was in a bind. Michelle is an outstanding principal for many reasons. She always knew when I needed her to offer her concrete, meaningful advice, or when I just needed someone to listen to me think through my ideas out loud. She was there when I needed someone to stand up for me, and she was also there when I stood up for myself and needed someone to lean on afterwards. She is a strong leader, one who doesn't give in to something that she doesn't think is right. She is genuine, she is kind. She is all those things we teach our students to be. I was always in constant communication with Dr. Fox during my time with Carpenter Unified School Districts. Because of this, I was very surprised to hear that Dr. Fox was asked to resign from her position due to communication issues. I do not stand with the decision, and I am grateful that Dr. Fox, once again, standing up for what she thinks is right, standing with her schools. Thank you.
Next speaker is Judy Haller.
Good evening. I'm Judy Haller. I'm the office coordinator at the Summerland School, and I'm here tonight to express my support for Dr. Fox. I don't see the problem, but everybody else seems to. I don't understand it completely, but I know that she's been nothing more than supportive. She's been nothing more than available whenever we needed her. On any given time, if she's not available there at that moment, she's in her car driving over, telling me she's on her way. She's very well liked by the students. She jokes, she plays with them, she's very warm, very kind and very supportive of everybody in the school. And I don't know what more to say other than she's been really awesome, and I don't see the problem you see. All right. Sorry.
The next speaker is Selena Kelly.
Good evening. My name is Selena Kelly, mother of 3 children who have all attended Aliso School. There have been many principals who have all had a positive impact on the community, teachers, and students. However, Dr. Fox has proven to be exceptional at providing a safe and supportive learning environment to our children. Dr. Fox has been nothing but a huge support for my son, who is in 3rd grade at Aliso School. If he was having a particularly hard day, Dr. Fox would personally call me at work to let me know what had happened, which I was so thankful for. She has always been approachable and warm. I am deeply saddened by this news and hope that the whole board is able to recognize all the wonderful things Dr. Fox has done at Aliso in just 1 year. She has contributed in many ways, such as new fundraising opportunities, like the Color Run, family movie nights, and the most recent yard sale, all of which has helped the school grow. Also, I've noticed a change in all the teachers' and staff's attitudes, which in turn make the whole environment more pleasant. Therefore, I am shocked by the news of Dr. Fox being forced to resign. This is very sudden and unexpected, especially after all the improvements she has made. Also, without reason, the school board has made an irrational decision that has left parents and teachers questioning the stability of the public school system. From the perspective of a parent, I hope the school board can see how Dr. Fox has not only impacted students and teachers, she has affected the community as well. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gretchen Toffelmeyer.
Good evening. This week is Classified Employees Week. Dr. Michelle Fox expressed her appreciation for all of our support staff at Aliso with gracious words of praise and appreciation, and with food for everyone. Our support staff was very moved and wrote several emails expressing their gratitude. Our community has come together because of her leadership. I would now like to address the Summerlin community, and I don't think many of them are here tonight, but maybe they'll watch it later. We don't know. Oh, and I know that for Summerland families, not having a full-time principal must be challenging, as it is for Aliso. We all face that same difficulty. We don't know how the new superintendent might restructure leadership, but right now Dr. Fox is all of our principal. She has faced tremendous challenges with little support. Unfortunately, parents can't know how her hands might be tied because of laws and privacy of students. So things may not be as they appear to parents. But parents, please know that teachers and principals all want to help every student succeed. That's why we are here. Dr. Fox wants the success of all of our children. That's why she's here. If we could all first seek to understand, walk into a conversation with the intention of understanding, this community can work together. We need to build bridges, not talk about each other, but talk with each other. We still need to deal with the wrongdoings of the incumbent board members, and that will come later. Right now, I want Summerlin families to know that we share a principal who is thoughtful, competent, compassionate, and passionate about quality education. Give her the opportunity to show you that. Let's all work together for all of our kids at CUSD. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Summerlin students in their play on June 2nd.
Last speaker is Susan Fredrickson.
Hello, good evening. My name is Susan Fredrickson, and I've been a teacher at Aliso School for the past 22 years. I teach first grade. At Aliso, we teach students to be problem solvers rather than problem makers. So it is in this spirit that I would like to propose solutions to two big problems facing our schools. The first problem is that at Aliso, we have a wonderful principal whom we would like to keep as our principal. She's been pressured to resign by two of our board members, mostly because of problems at Summerlin School. She is the most popular, qualified, and effective principal that we have had since Lisa Maglione, and that's 17 years ago. Aliso has 400 or so students, and we now have a principal who is a wonderful and inspiring leader and who is motivating positive behavior and achievement for our students. The other problem is that there are chronic issues at Summerlin School that remain unresolved. And it is mostly what prompted the two board members to pressure our principal to resign. Even though I've never taught at Summerlin, I am familiar with some of the issues there because through the BITSA program, I mentored a new teacher, Amanda Furdin, when she was teaching there. I propose the following list of hopefully helpful solutions. Number one, I propose that perhaps students with extreme behavior concerns are not well served in such a small school environment. There's not the staff support to meet their needs. And after a well-defined process, it could be determined that perhaps a child's needs are best served in a larger school environment of Aliso or Canalino. At Aliso, we help each other with students who need extra support. At Aliso, we do not put students that have extreme needs in combo classes or in an environment where there is not enough support for that child to be successful, because we want all children to be successful. Number two, I propose we revise the structure at Summerlin until things are worked out better there. Hopefully, with the influence and direction of our new superintendent, perhaps she could oversee a restructuring that could include some combination of a teacher in charge, administrator/office manager, and that other issues could be directly supervised by the new superintendent. Finally, and most importantly for Aliso, allow us to keep our principal. In the coming years, she and our whole district will have the benefit of being guided by our new superintendent, whose role is to evaluate and guide the principals of Carpinteria schools. Please don't jeopardize a well-functioning school at Aliso by pulling out the rug from underneath us. We've spent the last year building a cohesive and supportive team of dedicated educators, and we are looking forward to working with Dr. Fox to better serve the students at Aliso School. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item E4, a report on Title IX. I believe we have Mr. Cooney and Mr. Latham here and Mr. Cornejo.
Good evening. I want to first thank, I need the clicker. This is an update on Title IX report that was presented to you sometime in February of 2016. First of all, just to go over what Title IX is, and this is specifically, this report or update is specifically dealing with our athletic program at Carpinteria High School. Even though Title IX addresses or encompasses a lot of other things, this is specifically just for our athletic program. Just to give you a background on how we got here, in 2015, we as Carpinteria High School decided that we should do an assessment on how we're doing with Title IX compliance. During that time, between October 2015 and February 2016, we completed our assessment of how we are addressing those needs and those requirements. In October 2016, we created a Title IX committee. Dr. Sarvis asked me to form a committee. And in 2017, this is where we are today. We're giving you an update on where we are. And in 2017 school year, 2017-2018, we'll be implementing some of the recommendations that we have not done so up to now. We went out and hired a Donna Lupiano, who is a president and founder of Sports Management Resources, and she works through the country with universities and colleges and high schools on how to be compliant under Title IX. So that's something that we did. We went out and hired her. She worked with Mr. Cooney. She worked with our coaches, and she was able to provide us with a list of 45 recommendations that you'll be hearing about today. The Title IX Committee, we met over the last school year, and you can see the list of members up there. We have Mr. Cooney, who's our athletic director. He is here. We have Kathleen Gordon, who is a parent. We have Mr. Latham, who is a teacher, and Mr. Paul Patine, who's a parent, and Mr. Vasquez, the assistant principal. Those were all on the Title IX Committee. I'm going to be inviting at various times some of the members so that they can provide additional information about the recommendations that you'll see. What we did is after Ms. Lupiano came back, she gave us 17 categories of analysis and findings. And those categories that you see are accommodations of interest and abilities, levels of competition, locker room facilities, practice facilities, competition facilities, sports equipment and supplies, practice apparel and uniforms, scheduling games and practices, transportation accommodations and meals, academic support, medical training and conditioning services, publicity and promotion, administrative and fundraising, recruitment of student athletes, and financial aid. Those are the 17 categories that she found, and in each of those categories, she gave us various recommendations. The committee then sat down and we reviewed the 45 individual recommendations, and we broke those down into 4 categories: policy, physical plant or facilities, and administrative. The first area of recommendations were policy recommendations. Those were coordinating schedules of practice and competition, recruitment of experienced coaches, assigning experienced coaches across the teams. So if somebody came and said, I want to be a basketball coach, well, we wouldn't just allow them to be part of the boys' team. We would say, you have very good qualities. We need you in the girls' team, for example. The other thing is a uniform policy regarding awards and banquets. Right now, there are some teams give X amount of awards, some other teams give X amount of awards. So it's creating a uniform policy for awards and banquets. Academic support, how do we provide academic support for our athletes that are struggling, or is just not one team emphasizing the fact that they should go to tutorial, but it's across the board? And also equal access to the teams for all the programs that we have at Carpinteria High School. I'm going to have Mr. Cooney come up to us and explain to us what are the recommendations regarding practice and competition, and also as we move forward, I'll invite him back up to tell us about what we intend to do regarding some additional programs that we need to implement at Carpinteria High School.
So we all carry around one of these big books. You see these Title IX committee members running around with this giant white book filled with the report. So there's bad news and good news in the report. The bad news being we're out of compliance. Further bad news being most districts are out of compliance. So Title IX's been around since 1974, and we're just into a resurgence of Title IX, basically based on the idea that participation numbers need to be published by districts and schools. So on the good news side, a lot of our work has been reaffirming, and we have the goal of complying. We have a great opportunity to respond with these specific recommendations by Dr. Lupiano. And CUSD could already be applauded for the efforts they've made. Sending representatives to the training where Dr. Lopiano reminded us that Title IX is not a hat to be casually worn by an AD or a principal or even somebody who just happens to have the Title IX coordinator label. We also initiated the self-assessment, which was amazing. She's the expert. She is the national expert. So if she's the national expert on Title IX, she must be the best in the world. She was impressive when she was here, and we went through things with a fine-tooth comb. So it's not like a stone has been left unturned through the process. It's been amazing. And now we're at the point where we get to develop a gender equity plan that the district can own. So I think the part that I wanted to speak to most, maybe it's too early to talk about that, but I was going to talk about participation points and numbers and that kind of stuff. That's good now? Okay, great. So the resurgence is definitely based on the participation numbers and the fact that we need to make those public. We're not afraid of OCR, or the Office of Civil Rights, because they don't ride through town and then say you're out of compliance and we're going to withhold funds. That's not what districts are afraid of. There are plenty of watchdogs out there that are bringing expensive litigation to districts, and that's really what you're looking out for when you go through this process. So in terms of participation, the chronology or how do you add a sport, or why would you add a sport, or how do you survey your students, and those kinds of things are really at the heart of what we're doing. So speaking specifically about Carpinteria High School, we have about 640 students. The number changes a little here and there. And this year we had 603 participation opportunities on all of our teams. Impressive. Our students are doing something. We had 50% of our boys involved in athletics and 49% of our girls involved in athletics. And when you boil it all down, you're looking for what is the participation gap. It's based on the percentage of, it's not just equal. You can't just have, if we had 640 people, you couldn't divide that into 320 and say, oh, good, we have 320 boy opportunities and 320 girl opportunities. It's based on the proportion of girls and boys in your school. So if you have more girls in your school, you need to have more participation opportunities for the girls. And that's usually where the gap is. So we had a participation gap this year. We had 603 opportunities of 33. So you start to look around and go, where could we add 33 girls without cutting our other programs? That's really Dr. Lopiano's approach, too, is we're not going to look at this as like we don't need to shave this program in order to improve this. Let's find a way to supplement in order to meet the requirements. So we have a participation gap of about 33. And so you look at the chronology of things that have been brought up, either by parents or student surveys or kids coming to us and saying that this is a sport we're interested in. What are other schools around us doing? How does a sport get developed? Wrestling is something that's come up. Beach volleyball is something that's come up. Lacrosse is something that's come up. All don't specifically fit our situation. The one that does is stunt. We looked at 33 initially and said, hooray, we do cheer, and we have 34 cheerleaders. And Dr. Lopiano shook her finger at us and said, that's not a sport. And you kind of say, well, what? They're athletic. They do amazing things. They compete in the spring. Who wins? Where's the umpire? Where's the numbers on the jersey? Who do they play against? Where's the championship? Does it walk like a duck? Could it be a sport? It's not a sport, but good news for all of us. It's becoming a sport. In 2018, CIF will add cheer officially as a sport. It doesn't look like rally cheer. Now it's stunt with quarters. There isn't a crowd cheering there for them except for their performance. It has a tumbling aspect, a dance aspect. It's all really well prescribed, and it looks a lot more like a sport. So now it's starting to sound a lot like what Carpinteria High School does in the spring. And so it makes sense. You'll see in Mr. Cornejo's presentation later that that's what we're recommending at this point, is that stunt get added as a spring sport. It does seem to solve our participation gap. It would fill that in for us. We're adding something like wrestling wouldn't, because we'd add boys and girls to the same thing and perpetuate our same situation. Same thing with beach volleyball. Adding boys and girls wouldn't necessarily help our situation. And one thing that Dr. Lopiano failed to recognize was that we don't have more athletes. We don't just by adding a team, we're not all of a sudden going to fill that gap. We've already maxed out so many of our students. If we've got 603 opportunities, or 50% of our students are actually participating in athletics. So our recommendations based on what seems to already fit Carpinteria High School, and just sort of wanted to provide you with that participation piece, because that drives the whole resurgence of our attention to Title IX and justifies adding stunt as a solution to our participation piece. I think that's all I have at this point.
And that's when we say access to teams, that's actually what we mean. How can we increase the participation of all of our students? It is very easy to go in and say, well, if we cut this program, we would be in compliance. But then that's not what we do at Carpenter High School. That's not what we do at Carpenter Unified. And it's supporting our students with new opportunities. And STUNT is obviously one of the programs that we have a lot of our students that would be interested in participating. The other thing that we looked at was fiscal recommendations, those recommendations that ultimately would cost some money. Those would, like Mr. Cooney just mentioned, is creating a STUNT team, the equipment, the transportation, the scheduling, and the officials. And CIF will be providing those guidelines to us this coming fall. The neighboring high schools are also on the same boat as we are. They're also looking into adding STUNT because they're also looking at how to be compliant under the Title IX requirements. Another thing is fundraising. How can we make sure that fundraising is equal across the teams so that if you have 600 students participating in track and they go out there and ask for the community support and they come back with $1 million, I hope they did. And then we have a golf team of only 8 students and they go out and get $2,000. Well, that fundraising should be equal across the board. So it shouldn't just be because you have more numbers, you get more money. So that's something that we'll be working with our parent groups and our fundraising guidelines that we will be providing to our parents in the next couple of months. Also, uniform allocation, transportation. So, for example, if we send, one of the things that Mr. Cooney and transportation has to keep in mind, if we send a group of students on those yellow buses, and we send a group of students of, let's say, a boys team to, Oak Park on those nice air buses, well, we need to be able to provide that same opportunity to a girls team. So those are all things that we have to keep track of, and Mr. Cooney has been doing a great job along with our transportation department. And also awareness and recruitment. How can we go into our middle school and to our 9th and 10th and 11th grade students and tell them, this is the programs that we have, this is what it takes to be an athlete, this is the financial support that we have for you to be part of that team, this is when the practices are. So it's awareness and recruitment of students. So if we create STUNT, we're going to have to go out and recruit those students because our cheerleaders, some of them are not used to, their program ends in December. So they will have to either make a choice later on to be in STUNT or in another sport in the spring. We also went and looked into facility recommendations. One of the facility recommendations was the training room. Our training room right now is housed in an old teacher's lounge about 50 yards away from the gym. So how can we bring that facility near the locker rooms? The weight room is currently part of what used to be the boys' locker room. There's a wall, but also it's the intimidation factor of having to go into a side door. How can we make that into a better, more appealing program so that the female students are actually welcome to go into the program? Do we have the right equipment for the weights? Do we have those big weights or do we have the small weights? Do we have the equipment that is equal for everybody? So that's something that we need to look at for our weight room. Practice facilities. Last year, over the last 2 years, when Ms. Lupiano came, there was a big concern over our turf management. Well, we were in the middle of a drought, so all turfs were not in a perfect condition. This year, our grounds has done a very good job, but we also have a limited amount of training and practice facilities outside. So with our grounds, they've been able to maintain the turf. We rotate practices. We move the soccer team from one side of the field to another so that they don't work on the same side. So that's all turf management. There is a recommendation in the report of going artificial turf, but none of the teams and none of the coaches want to move that direction. But that would solve some issues regarding practice facilities and equity. Measure U recommendations. Well, one of the first things that we need to address is the weight room. We need to have equipment for everybody, all students, accessible to all students, and it needs to be separate and from the current building. The facility needs to be conducive to teaching. Right now we have in our weight room, if I schedule more than 25 students, it's packed in there because it was never meant to be a weight room. The community fundraised 3 or 4 years ago for new equipment. It looks great, but once I put, again, 20 or 25 students, it's packed and it becomes a safety issue for the teacher. And we have, like Mr. Cooney mentioned, we have about 70% of our students participate in a sport during the year. It is the most used classroom that we have at Carpinteria High School. So we look at it not just as a gym and not just as a weight room, not just as a training room. We look at it as a classroom where 70% of our students go in throughout the year. I'm going to have Mr. Latham come up and tell you about our recommendation working with the Measure U committee. Mr. Latham is also on the Measure U committee, about what our current weight room looks like, what we are looking for in the new gym complex, and what we would have different in the weight room that we have now to what we would have in the future. Do you have that? And then you have those.
And
Right there.
forward, got it. All right, thank you for listening to us. Our current weight room, this is taken a few years ago when we did fundraiser for our new equipment. It's very nice equipment, but it is in a small room. We have a smaller room that is behind the main weight room that is not ideal. It's not great for supervision, but we have to use every inch of space that we have. It is next to the boys' locker room, and it does not have a solid wall, so noises, smells, sounds, all can go back and forth between the weight room and the boys' locker room, so that's not an ideal situation. And it's been that way for a long time, and we've been lucky that it has been working the way it has, and we've made do with it. But based on this report and with Measure U, I think it's an opportunity to make a much nicer facility for our students, both athletes and physical education, because PE classes also use the weight room as well. We looked at an idea. This is just a preliminary plan for what might happen with our weight room. This back area is the grass area between the tennis courts and the gymnasium.
Do you have the mouse? Do you have the mouse, Mr. Latham?
Excuse me?
Use the mouse, and then it can be seen on the screen.
Ah, okay. Got it. I can do that. So at the top of the screen is where the tennis courts are. The gray area is the gymnasium and the locker rooms. And this current area is an asphalt area that is not in great shape, but it gets used quite a bit. And this is a grass area. Softball needs batting cages to be Title IX compliant with the baseball diamond. And the plan was to put the batting cages right across from the promenade from the softball diamond, so they'd be fairly close and usable. This would be what we would like for a weight room. It would be a standalone building. These SCPAs are self-contained power areas. Basically, it's very similar to the equipment we have, but we would like to have about 4 more at least, and double to triple the square footage of our weight room. And these would have a variety of weights plus other types of equipment for strength and conditioning and flexibility. These areas we may not be using. When we first made this plan, this was for spin cycles. We may not be continuing with the spin cycles. That is to be determined. So it may not need to be this large, but it would. We're looking at maybe having a cardio area as well as a strength and flexibility area. We thought this would also be an excellent opportunity to build a new outdoor basketball court that could be used for both physical education, recreation, and for team practices, and make it a full court going this way rather than the half courts that we already have that aren't in great shape, but put a new sport court type surface. And then in the rest of the area along the side, we can put grass for training and small teamwork, and make this quite an area for both physical conditioning practice and technical work. So that's our idea, and I hope it's feasible with all the things that we need to do and accomplish in our schools with Measure U. This is an example of what we would like. This is Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks. This is I think it's been 2 years since they built this facility. It is state of the art. It is amazing. You can see they have equipment galore. I don't know that we need all this, but these are these SCPA, self-contained power areas. They're racks for holding weights. They have TRX bands. They have rings. They have overhead ladders. Quite a few different things, so you can do multiple exercises in one station and not have to move around the weight room, or as we do right now, go outside to do some of our exercises. We can be self-contained within one room. So that, this is the idea that we're looking at. And I think that is our last slide dealing with the weight room. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. The idea also, this is one of the recommendations that was made, is basically how can we have access by the girls softball team needed a batting cage. So this year what we did is we actually went and got some portable batting cages to have an immediate impact on meeting Title IX. The next item would be the dugouts, and we worked on the field. So there are certain things that we've done over the last year that we recognized that needed to be done immediately to solve some of the compliance issues, and that we were able to do so very quickly. Some of the next steps that we will be doing under the Title IX would be to, the committee will continue to evaluate and coordinate the recommendations as we move forward. We will have an annual evaluation of the program, of the equipment, the personnel, the teams, and schedules. We will conduct annual surveys of our students, the parents, and coaches of what kind of programs do we need. And we would provide you an annual report to the school board on how we're doing with the recommendations. And then we would also be working with the Measure U folks on how we can coordinate the recommendations, how can they be aware of the recommendations in order to incorporate them into the Measure U project. Before I end, I would like to invite Mr. Patine so he can come over and give you the parent perspective, since he was the parent representative on the committee, on how he has seen us work into the developing this plan on how to address the recommendations that were made by Dr. Lupiano on Title IX.
Good evening, Board. My name's Paul Patine, and this is not the casual hat that Mr. Cooney referred to, but also a public announcement. El Caro North, 150 people have lost, or houses lost electricity. I just got the text from my wife. Freudian slip, and so think about that tonight, As a parent on the committee, Title IX I have some experience with Title IX. Actually, one of the seminal cases for Title IX was Cohen versus Brown University, Providence, Rhode Island. My great uncle was the judge that ruled against the university in favor of Title IX. My collegiate sport, track, at New Mexico State, was eliminated because of Title IX. That's not what we're doing here, and that's not what the recommendations, and that's what the committee isn't going to do. First of all, are we not in compliance as a parent sitting in this committee? Yes. But as a parent coming on this committee, reading the report, listening to everything, we're doing a pretty good job at Carp High. A pretty good job. We're going to add one women's sport. We only have to add one. There's little things, little details that have to be worked out. But this community, this board, this school should be proud of how they include both genders. Remember, Title IX is just not sports, but that's what it's focused on. Title IX is a K through 12 for all aspects of life. But how does Title IX usually get confronted with in school districts? Softball. It's one of those sports. It's one of the trigger sports. But we do pretty good here. You look at it, the men's baseball field's pretty nice. But the JV goes to Canalino. And if you look at that field, softball has it pretty good over there. So I think most of our things will be solved with a lot of Measure U. It's going to upgrade many levels. But from a perspective of the parent coming in, we've done a great job. You know, you ought to be proud of yourselves. And we're moving. We went through every recommendation. It was read. It was discussed. Ideas were bantered about. And it wasn't just the administration or the teachers or the coaches' idea. They listened to the parent representatives. And, you know, it makes you feel good as a parent to know you're being listened to about what your thoughts are for this. So I want to leave you with this, that you're going to be in compliance sooner rather than later, I believe. You've done a great job. And for all those parents of elementary students that I heard here, you ought to be proud that you're going to be able to have your children go up to Carp High School and know that your students are going to be treated equally, sport-wise, academic-wise, completely. So I've done that. I have too, K through. And it's a great, great place to send your children. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, do you have any questions?
Questions? Maureen? Yeah.
I want to thank all of you for working so hard on this. This is not a small topic, and it's not. It's a process, right? It's not ever gonna. It sounds like it's not ever gonna be stagnant. I feel like I can speak as sort of like the Title IX generation. I came of age as the first kind of 18-year-old to have gone through the schools with Title IX in place. And for my mom, didn't have Title IX. She's 5'9". She's she plays tennis 5 days a week now, but she never had school sports. Her brothers were, at Carp High setting records in track, but she didn't have that opportunity. So just to kind of, as a reminder, like how lucky we are because of this legislation, but also just, the opportunities it's creating. And I found the report interesting too, because it goes both ways. Like we think of Title IX as being equality for women, but one of the facilities, the locker rooms were all broken in the boys' locker room. So we want to make sure that so I think that's something to remember. And also it allows boys to be able to be on teams. Like if there's only a volleyball team, technically they would be, isn't that correct?
Yes.
That they would have to be given a spot on a sport where there wasn't the same sport for the male teams.
And that is one of the policy recommendations for us as the administration, working with Mr. Cooney, is developing those policies so that a student who wants, if we have a female who wants to play football, then that's what their options is. If somebody wants to play a sport that we don't have, that the students can advocate and say, we really want this sport, and it would be up to us to figure out how we can do it. One of the things that we always have to keep in mind that, like you just mentioned, this is not just for girls or females. This is also how our males or boys being served, and their facilities are their equal. So through Measure U, the locker rooms will be updated for both sides. So that is something that Measure U came along very nicely for us in order to address some of the needs that we know we need to address.
So just two little details, which is that it struck me as a little strange, just call me crazy, but maybe it's just a staffing thing. But I would love to see the Title IX committee being half male and half female, or maybe some other mothers or women or female teachers, because I think there's concerns. I know that there's concerns that female athletes are going to have that they're not necessarily going to voice to other men. I don't think, especially adolescents.
Correct.
So
one of the things that we are hoping to do is we will be adding student representation to the committee.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
As we move forward. And we, again, next week, we'll be going into the classrooms to do the survey for the students on what do we need to offer. Do you feel comfortable with the program that we have? Do you feel that you're growing as an individual? Those are some of the things that we'll be asking our students next week when we go into the classrooms. But at the same time, we also we decided not to add students in this process because of the technicalities that we were trying to figure out. But once we are able to do more of the evaluation, I think the students would be very valuable.
Yeah, and I think that I think for adding a sport, the big thing that I want to say is I would love. I mean, it sounds like stunt is kind of a no-brainer given our population, But I would really like, I think that for women's sports, that a team-based sport is incredibly valuable, and that something like a winter sport like rugby, which is the number one, it sounds kind of strange, women's rugby, but it's actually the number one growing sport right now. I did some research into this, and spoke to someone who did rugby all the way, ended up with a scholarship in it in college, and felt like it really, really had a good improvement on them. It's a winter sport.
Correct.
So I thought maybe, because you're not going to get a direct translation of cheerleaders to stunt because of the spring sports they're already probably doing. So maybe if there was a winter sport, I thought maybe that was a...
Yeah, one of the things that we, Mr. Cooney, will be doing is working with his colleagues at San Rafael High School and other high schools in the area, because we need to find competitors.
You have to find people to play. And that's what I was looking at, too. I just kind of Googled, like, what other schools, and lacrosse was another one that seems to be really growing. But I want to put a personal plug-in for rugby.
Would you like to coach?
Well, I can find us a coach, for sure.
Mr. Gloger played rugby when he was in San Rafael.
Oh, really?
And at Westmont. So
yeah.
So yes, and those hoping we are able to get some of that insight when we do the survey for students.
Yeah, I think the survey, you have to be led by the survey. Right. Yeah.
So, but this has been a very interesting process, because we're able to see, when you're inside, sometimes you don't see what you need to fix.
Right.
And this has been a great opportunity to do that.
Right. Well, just my last thing, sorry. I think growing up here too, you're kind of always, as a female athlete, you're definitely in the shadow of kind of football. And so at least I was, but it seems to me like things are perhaps leveling out. And I like that you're looking at the way the boosters' monies could be distributed, because that always felt really, really unfair. I was on swim team. No one came and watched us ever. And, we had kind of sad, everything was a little sad. We were new too. Mm-hmm. But if you knew that, like, the football games, which had this huge attendance and funding and everything, that money was going to help support, what the smaller sports were doing, I think there's more buy-in and happiness all around. So, sorry, Jacqueline.
Can you define sports for me as it relates to Title IX? I could never wrap my head around the fact that such a physical activity as stunts and cheer are not considered a sport. So what?
So those are the sports that we do need to be sanctioned by CIF, which is a state organization that is across the state. There's various regions, and they create the rules. They find the officials. They basically regulate the officials. They regulate the championships and so forth. And that's one of the things that we always have to go by, is that this is sanctioned CIF sport.
So stunts and cheer are currently just not sanctioned. So it's just by definition that it's.
It was never part of a CIF sport because they didn't have rankings, they didn't have a league and so forth. Starting in 2018, CIF will be now considering stunt as one of their sports.
So there has to be competition. I got it.
There has to be a competition. There has to be something that goes along with it that you can define whether there was there a competition, or did you all just get together and play today?
Yeah, like I looked at surfing, but it's not a CIF. It's something that our students are already doing, but there's no way to get that official sanctioning or whatever.
Yep.
Right. Anything? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the committee for all the hard work they put in. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Okay. We have a meeting to continue here, so all right, we'll move on to item E5, a report on the California Healthy Kids Survey, and Sharon Velarde's here.
There, now I'm on. I'm out of practice. Good evening, and thank you for having me. We had such great speakers before me. I hope I can keep up. I'm a little bit out of practice. So we're looking at, the announcement said Cal checks, but we're looking at it differently. It's kind of a reset of how we look at the student data and the surveys. A couple years ago, I think I alluded to it the last time before I retired and brought you the data from the survey. I believe I alluded to Cal Schools. Now we're calling it Cal Schools. So we're going to see what is it, what does it measure, why is it important, and we're going to look at data at a glance. So I won't have a lot of data for you, but I do have a lot of information on where we're going with that. So what is it? So Cal Schools is 3 survey tools developed by West Ed. We've used them for a long time, particularly the checks. We're used to hearing checks all the time, California Healthy Kids Survey. It's the oldest and largest, most comprehensive survey in the nation. And there's more surveys than the ones that we use that are available through West Ed. Part of that is the staff climate survey that we use as well in the district that staff participate in. And there's a parent survey as well. We don't use the parent survey, but I've recommended to administrator in charge. Is that your title? I'm sorry. Jamie, and that's something I recommend that we use so all the surveys can correlate and we have the data. It's customized, the Cal Schools is customized to address local concerns and interests. Separate surveys are for students. Elementary, middle, and high school are different surveys. They look a little different, ask a little different questions, or ask the question in a different way. And they look at the most comprehensive areas in the comprehensive survey in the nation. We're looking at these areas: alcohol, safety, nutrition, behavior, suicide, gangs, youth resiliency, and school connectiveness. So what does it measure? Well, looking at it, it measures quite a few things. The data that these 3 surveys provide us with a data that are 4 of the 8 LCAP priorities. I know that the school district is working on finishing up their LCAP, and these 3 surveys can provide us with much data. School climate, pupil engagement, parent involvement, and facilities. So this chart shows you and the student core what information it can give us. The school climate survey, that's a little student climate survey. It's a little additional survey in addition to the core. What the staff data can provide, and what parent data can provide us as well. This year, in addition to the core California Healthy Kids survey, the Santa Barbara County custom module looked at other indicators: anxiety and mental health risk, peer relationships, diversity, discipline, and additional AOD questions. Now, every 2 years, we take the additional Santa Barbara County module. As part of a representative for the school district, I attend the meetings where we look at the questions being asked. Do we want to take any out, put any in? Different districts have requirements that they have to report for grants and some different funding. So those questions adjust. We participate in this through the 2-pay funding grant that provides us these opportunities and supports the payment of what it costs to have these surveys. So this year it cost $200, and that $200 was just for 2 reports, 2 secondary reports. They're called report cards. All the other data was free, provided by the 2-pay Santa Barbara County grant. In an off year where we aren't it's every other year. In an off year, we would have to pay for those surveys. It amounts to about $1,500 with reports. It's 40 cents a person or 40 cents a parent, the survey itself. This year, students took the surveys. Everyone actually took the survey all online. It's all web-based. So there's an additional Santa Barbara custom module, the social emotional health and competence, and it looks at other things we might be interested that we want to learn from students. And this was developed by Dr. Mike Furlong. He worked with the district. It's been a while, and we took the first of this survey as he was developing it, the Ps. The 11th grade actually took it in 5th grade. The current 11th grade took this type of survey, and we used the data to set goals for the grant that we had received for it. So that survey is also available. That's an additional survey. The parent involvement survey tells us what are parent perceptions, and again, it aligns with the staff and the student survey. Are we welcoming to parents? Are parents well informed about activities? Does the school respond to them? Do we encourage active participation in their education? And are we seeking input from parents? So those are the parent questions that it looks at. And what the school climate and engagement variables assessed in the surveys for students, staff, and parents: school connectiveness, learning, academic rigor, positive relationships, meaningful participation, perceived safety, substance abuse, discipline, and order. Other variables are social, emotional, and behavior supports, respect for diversity, the physical environment, parent involvement, and other supports. So why is Cal Schools important? An important feature of checks that is incorporated into this model is derived from resiliency research that provides guidance for how to go about fostering a positive school climate, resiliency, and positive academic, social, psychological, behavior, and health outcomes. How well a school is doing in implementing the model and creating conditions for youth to succeed is in school, career, and life. The research in this area has identified 3 developmental supports linked to resiliency and positive outcomes, and is measured by a 3-item scale in the checks: caring relationships, high expectation, and opportunities for involvement. School climates rich in these 3 supports have positive outcomes that address basic developmental needs for youth to survive and thrive, help to foster personal strength and the social emotional competencies, protect against risk, promote school connectiveness, and promote school attendance, performance, and graduation. All these practices, research states that we should be examined through a lens of how we help and foster these supports and meet the needs of our youth. So what is meant by school climate? It's not specified by the LCAP process particularly, but it's an umbrella concept. It's a school's personality and how it affects attitudes and behaviors of our students, staff, and parents. And it's indicated by designated LCAP metrics. We've always stated in the LCAP the suspension rate and expulsion rate. Now, and I believe this year the district is starting to include this measurement. It will be required next year of safety and connectiveness measures. So the state will be requiring those every year and want to see growth in those areas. Well, why do we care about school climate? The past decade, which we were lucky enough in Carpinteria to participate, has provided findings that bring about a new application of school climate importance, Many of us would consider things like positive relationships and meaningful participation, safety to be an end in itself. But positive school climate has an intrinsic value. It's a good thing. I know we all like to say we're from Carpinteria. It feels good to say we're from Carpinteria because we all feel part of this wonderful community. So research has shown that positive school climates is related to improved attendance, discipline, engagement, achievement, and graduation, mental health, self-esteem, lower substance, violence, bullying, and problem behaviors, and even school suspension. For school staff, the evidence to positive climate is associated with improved staff morale, satisfaction, performance, and retention. And parent involvement also provides more positive school climates. All research has found a correlation between these areas. And as most of you know, it's not news that good student and staff relations, a safe campus, and even a strong community lead to good outcomes. But we know that sometimes education overlooks school climate and it focuses only on curriculum instruction and governance. So what is school connectiveness? Feeling like school, like we're belonging, like we share the values and have a sense of community, that we're rooted in a sense of safety, fairness, and support of all learners and staff and parents. It increases achievement by promoting that intrinsic interest, that wanting to be involved, wanting to be there, wanting to be at school. And it links LCAP to pupil engagement priority. So let's look closer at school connectedness. This is a validated check score connectedness scale, and these are the questions that students are asked. I feel close to people at school. I'm happy to be at school. I feel like I'm part of the school. Teachers at school treat students fairly, and I feel safe. This 5-item connectedness scale is a validated measure, and it's shown to relate to both academic performance and student well-being. It provides a single score reflecting the degree to which youth feel connected and safe, and positive relations between staff and students. So the Common Core implementation, it provides data on how to support school climate and fosters the learning engagement that students need to be successful in Common Core success. Some of the supplemental modules, I think I mentioned before, can provide other things that we can look at: persistence or grit, collaboration, cooperation, problem solving, and then academic mindset of students. Excuse me. Okay. So this shows you, along the bottom is a scale, a climate scale. It's the state metric from 1 to 10. And as school climate increases, positive school climate increases, you can see on the other line, academic performance also increases. So data at a glance. I'm not going to give you lots of data tonight.
So Sharon, is that last slide? Is that a indicator of our district?
Well, I'm going to show you that in a
Okay.
minute. It's an indication of the high school.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So this is what we're looking at, the key indicators of school climate for 5th grade. 162 5th graders across the district took the survey. Factors in some of the data can change from year to year, and some of the factors might be behavior, experiences of students, the size of the sample, changes in the question. For example, 5th graders, when they go on and take it again in 7th grade, the question, how it's asked or what is asked, is a little bit different, and the same with 11th grade. So sometimes there is a little bit of differences in data. But the 5th grade tells us now, at the top, the school engagement and supports, you see that high in parentheses. So the scale reflects in those questions a low, medium, and high. So for example, in the high range, the question would be most or all of the time. Would be how they answered. In the mid-range, which we don't see, would be some of the time, and the low range, those scores would be in the no or never. But all our students answered these survey questions in the high range.
So 74% of our students answered, just in relation to school connectedness, that they felt very connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And 50% feel motivated, very highly motivated. 76 feel like they have very good caring adult relations. Meaningful participation in the high range is the 36, and high expectations for learning 72. Now, over the years, meaningful participation has always been low. It's not just us. It's kind of a consistency across schools. And students, what does that mean? So some of the questions students are asked are you given a chance to help to decide things at school, like class rules? Are you able to participate in a school climate team? I don't know if we have any school climate teams that students are involved in. Do teachers and other grown-ups make an effort to get to know you? Or do teachers ask what you want to learn? Is it relevant to you what they're teaching? So those are meaningful participation questions. We found that to be, when we were I think we were here in February with the after-school team, and we found that to be low too. So one of our driving forces was a student leadership team, where they were able to participate in things. We took them places to Westmont. They made their own, ideas. They developed their own student leadership and gave us ideas and worked with us. That's how we hope to raise, in that situation, meaningful participation. As far as students feeling safe, 87%. Hit or pushed was 36%. Have you been hit or pushed? Have mean rumors been spread about you? 40%. Have you been called bad names or jokes made about you? 42%. And saw a weapon? 8%. Now, I always find it interesting. I'll go back and I look at the data when the question is turned around. Have you hit or pushed anyone? And 70% say no. Okay? Have you spread mean rumors about anyone? 73% say no. Have you called anyone bad names or made jokes about them? And 85% say no. So there's a little discrepancy, and it might be how how it's perceived. Obviously, it's all about perception or understanding of what really bullying is. Has somebody teased you over and over and over and over in a mean way? Because we know that bullying is something that happens over and over again. It's not two friends getting in a little squabble and calling each other names and then apologizing later, crying about it, whatever, however kids handle it. It's something that occurs over and over again. So the perception, maybe how we help students participate more meaningfully is have some, talks about what does it mean to you? What does it look like you? How can you help the school? Just some ideas like that, I was thinking about. And then saw a weapon at school. Have you brought a weapon to school? 98% said no. So, but 8% said they saw a weapon. But it doesn't ask the question, what kind of weapon? Is it a toy gun? Is it a knife? Is it a pocket knife? I mean, in my car I carry what's the one with the little cross? a Swiss Army knife. I might need scissors or, you know, so we don't know what it is. But that's pretty low. And then it asks students, are students well behaved? Are students treated fairly? And are students treated respect? And 91%. So fifth graders believe that everyone is treated with respect. So on the next one, and you have this because it's hard to see. This is the school report card, the school climate report card for secondary. And this began a couple years ago. I think it was the first one that came out. We don't have this for elementary as yet. And I don't know if it will be developed, but this gives us 3 years of data. So what this tells us, let me find mine. Where is mine? So you have yeah, there's some extra too. So you have this, it's much easier to read. I tried every which way to photograph it so it was readable on the screen and I couldn't. So we're looking at the high school. So at the high school has had over the last 3 years a positive 37% change. So that diagram I showed you about positive school climate and increased academic performance is reflected in the high school's school climate report card. This report card or school climate index helps schools gain an overview and monitor improvement efforts in regard to overall school climate and 8 crucial domains summarizing 120 items. Are students supported? Do they experience caring relationships? Are they connected? Low levels of harassment and victimization. So, the school climate index is measured on a scale from 100 to 500 with a mean of 300 and its standard deviation of 50. And looking at the high school this year, this year was 464. They're almost to the max, and they've improved 37 points in the last 3 years. They're doing great. What can I say about the high school? Everything's improving. Students are feeling more connected, more opportunities for participation. They feel safe, connected. The physical violence, victimization, harassment, substance abuse is decreasing for them, for what the students are telling us. All great things. Now, at the top, the state percentile. 99%, all across the board. And that tells us, and you have a couple more pages of information too that explains. So for example, a state percentile of 25 would mean that 25% of high schools in the state had the same or lower. So the high school is performing at the 99% percentile. So I believe a lot of schools are beneath them. I would be surprised if there was a lot of schools in the 99 percentile. The similar schools percentage is a rank relative to 100 other schools with similar demographics, characteristics, and the same applies. So Carpinteria High School is doing as good or better than 99% of the schools across in the similar demographic range. So it's great. It's doing great. And I know academically they're improving. So all the data and the research goes to the supports that academics improve, graduation rates improve, everything improves when the school climate is good. I gave you there's a second page. It's the subscale results, and it kind of breaks down the areas, overall supports, and you can see line by line how things have, if there's a positive or negative change. And then it also has some indicators of staff reported from the California School Staff Survey as well. And other information that you can read about it. Where's my next one? So, the next, and that was the page 2 that have all the different information on the report card. So for the middle school, 3 years are reported, and you have that one too. Mine's a different color. I think mine's a different color. It's in pink. So there was a negative change over the last 3 years at the middle school. So I started with the good news. The school climate index has shown a decrease, although they're still within this year 95. They're at the 95 percentile, and in similar schools 98% as well. So they're still doing good, but they have decreased according to what the student survey is telling us.
Sharon, quick question. When you say compared to similar schools, how or what's their similarities, like population size?
It's the similar demographics, size, ethnicities, boys, girls, numbers, things that are similar in that area. Look urban or suburban, things like that. So we wouldn't be compared with a school in LA Unified because we're not in a city. We might be more comparative to a school in the North County or in other areas that are a smaller community and the number of students, but similar other demographics. Doesn't tell us what schools it compares as, those schools. You'd have to go online in West Ed and research what schools look similar. All the information is on West Ed. So overall, for students at middle school, high expectations and caring relationships, that's, I think, the most impacted, where they feel a decrease, and meaningful participation. Though school safety, they feel safe there, and that hasn't changed. That's been similar for 3 years. And school connectiveness, actually, overall, there's not much of a change, just 4-point decrease. So they feel connected and they feel safe, but other areas, have shown a decrease. More harassment and bullying, and they feel like there's more victimization there, those students. Also on the one of the middle school, did I put that in there? Yeah. The staff reported as well feel some differences, kind of pretty much in the same area. Although the staff feel that they have a negative value in feeling school is a safe place for students, but students feel safe there. So, school climate is at the very heart and purpose of the LCAP. This is my summary. Find my other page. It makes it possible to meet the other priorities and goals of the school district and their overall goals of improving the stakeholder engagement and student achievement. And we think of stakeholders, we have to include our students. Sometimes we don't think of them as one of the stakeholders. We think parents and community, other representatives, staff. We have to remember students are also stakeholders in the process. A successful LCAP process must be rooted in the school-wide commitment to improving the climate and culture of the school. And it shouldn't be just thought of as just one of the 8 priorities that districts have to comply, but it really is central to the very heart and purpose of LCAP. And that's that. Oh,
Said-
I'm sorry. One more thing.
One more thing.
That I forgot. That all the reports that's public information will be posted. Tomorrow I'll be posting it on the CUSD website. It will be under parents and then under other useful links for parents, Healthy Kids Survey. But all the reports, the student survey reports, the staff reports, and hopefully starting next year we'll have parent reports as well that we can post along with those. The Cal schools.
So,
Any questions?
That very good. Thank you, Sharon. So right now we just don't do the parent report.
Not as part of Cal schools. You do a parent survey, but it has different questions, and we can't correlate it to the other two because it's a different measurement and doesn't ask similar questions where it could be included.
And did you say it's about 40 cents per survey?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if I could address that, we discussed it in our leadership team, and we felt that with the time we take now to get that survey out, Mr. Keating does that it would be helpful to have it correlate with the other two surveys and do that next year. So we discussed that in leadership team. And also I just wanted to mention that Sharon did bring this to my attention, and we are concerned and attentive to the drop in the middle school numbers on school climate. It's something that we're addressing, and with the new principal we'll be addressing as well. The new superintendent is aware of this as well. So it's definitely a goal of ours to address those things. And I asked every principal when they got these results a couple of months ago to review them in depth with their staff so we could really break down what it is we can do as a plan to move forward in the areas that are not as high as others.
So, Sharon, for 2016, it shows the insufficient data for last year for the staff. Is that just not enough people took it?
Not enough people took it.
Oh, that's disappointing not to have that.
Yes. Yeah, there has to be a 70%, I believe, participation. Anything below that doesn't give the proper data. This year, principals really got on board and got staff and organized it really well for staff to complete. And it is important for them to take. I mean, this information is valuable for leaders, students, and parents. I remember one year one of the high school teachers took it back to the classroom, and they compared their data to other schools. Because like I say, you can find this on it's public information. You can find it on the WestEd or state or Department of Education site. So he took it to the classroom, and it became a lesson, and they had a conversation about it. And I think it's great for students, and how they get involved. That would be a meaningful participation area that they could participate in that way.
So that reminds me, Sharon, that there was a wager involved for percentage of staff increase, and I believe principals, was it not Gerardo that was going to make enchilada dinner for the staff that had the highest percentage? So we had a little incentive that has yet to be delivered to get those staff surveys done.
Yes, I think he's supposed to. I think that's for Catalina.
So this doesn't play a part in like the cool new dashboard thing or anything like that, or it's a separate.
I haven't seen it on the dashboard. It might one day because of the requirements now that the state for the reporting of the safety measure. Do you feel safe? And the school connectiveness measure. Okay. So those are going to be required starting next year, but I know the district is including those measurements. They want us to have a baseline. The high school, they're pretty close to 500 there. Then they'll have to keep going.
You mentioned a grant that had provided some of this. So when I see kind of the results at the middle school that are disappointing, my mind starts to think about problem solving in terms of how to correct this. Are there grants that you know about that are tied into sort of trying to work with these numbers or help with these things?
We did do this work in 2007 with a big federal grant that I was able to participate. we brought school climate teams and to the schools, and they had some instruction and in developing expectations and helping, bringing more support staff and helping to support and kind of move toward a more positive climate. Those grants are not available. They were direct federal grants, which now go through the state. If those will continue, I don't know. When they came through the state, they went to the large school districts where school climate is a huge issue. So LA Unified, San Francisco, San Diego, the larger, urban areas, and weren't available. There's different grants out there. We participated in the gang task force grant that helped continue some of these supports, and that faded. That was supposedly going to come up again. I can't recall the date, but that would be something. I will impart the information I have to the new superintendent of which partnerships to keep working with. Where we worked with before that we got these great grants to do this work. But hard to say in today's political climate if this type of grant, these granting opportunities are going to continue. I couldn't say, but it doesn't take much to have a school climate team as part of, at schools, because I'm only consulting. I don't really know everything going on in each school. Bringing students in, that wouldn't be hard, and working toward simple, measures. I learned just teachers standing at the door and welcoming their students into the classroom each day. Hi, how are you? How's your morning going? A gesture as simple as that builds a relationship. It doesn't take any extra money or time, So there's a lot of different things that everyone can do that can lend toward building positive school climates.
Great. Any other questions?
No, I just think the middle school, I think we can all recognize that
The
there's
trend
a
is not
no, but on the flip side, the high school, I wish we could issue a police report, a press release, touting those results, because it's really, really incredible.
Well, hopefully, Leah will mention it in this week's Coastal View.
Right, yeah. But 100%. If you look on it, 100% of staff feel safe, and that's 70% of the staff reporting. That's
or more. Yeah.
Yeah, or more. Right. So that's 100%. You never see numbers like that. So
yeah, it's really great. I love being at the high school campus. I didn't when I was high school myself, but I love being there now.
All right. All right.
So, one thing that the high school does do, and I spoke to Jamie about something to bring back at middle, is they provide the LINK program for the incoming ninth graders. And when we were receiving some grant funding before, we had the web program at middle school that welcomed incoming sixth graders, and that should be restarted again. It's not really a whole lot of money. It just takes training of staff and some time, and they involve eighth grade students in that, and then the students themselves provide the welcoming and introduction to school, and they develop relationships before school even starts. That's really important, and I think that program should be restarted.
Great.
I think that would help.
Thanks for the report. Do you have another question?
No, just a question to you. Just looking at the agenda, can we take a quick break?
Break? Yeah.
Possible.
All right. Well,
Can I just make one last comment?
Yeah.
Sharon, just because you have so much knowledge and obviously having worked on this for so long, it would be wonderful. I don't know if this would be possible or whatever, but if there's some way that you could kind of summarize or make a recommendation for like a next step for the middle school. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe some way of just I don't know. Maybe you were already planning on doing that, but is that part of the?
Well, I think that's part. I think part of leadership team, and they're probably
Okay.
developing a strategy.
Okay.
But
I just
but
like all this information. I'm like, don't let it. You've got all these great
I'm
ideas
happy
and resources.
To, in part, my background knowledge of all this to the new superintendent and the principal as well. But I'm sure they might know a lot of this. And like I say, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, well, thanks for the report, Sharon. And I
Thank you.
think
You're welcome.
we'll take a short recess for about 5 minutes, and we'll be back after that. Thanks, Larry. We'll move on now to, we have no board policy. We'll move on to H, business operations, facilities, and warrants.
I move we approve the warrants for the period of May 4th through May 17th, 2017, in the amount of $694,840.97.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we're going to discuss item D9, which was
The MOU.
the MOU with Carpenter Children's Project to provide special ed services. Did you have a question there, Maureen?
Yeah, do we move to approve it and all that first?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I move to? Oh, did we already move to approve it because it was on the consent agenda?
No, because we pulled it. So
okay.
So
just
yeah,
all.
just go ahead.
I move to approve the MOU with Children's Creative Project for preschool services.
Carpinteria Children's Project.
What did I say?
You said Children's Creative Project.
Oh, sorry. I move to approve the MOU with CCP for preschool services.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I just I got some clarification. Is Kirsten here? No. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, I got some clarification just because the MOU was for the 7 spaces and this says 14 spaces, so we clarified that it's 2 half-day. It's doubled. So I figured that. But I just wanted a little background information about just like why this was needed or if this is a new service.
I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. So thanks for the clarification about the 14 spaces.
Sure.
And then I just wanted to know why this was. Is this a new thing that we're providing? Just a little bit more background about it.
So back in October of 2016, the board approved a take-back plan for preschool.
Right. Okay.
And for the last couple of decades at least, prior to that, Carpinteria Unified School District had been contracting with the county education office to be the preschool operator for our students with IEPs.
Okay.
And so as a district, we wanted to start serving our students and building relationships with families right away at age 3 when they become eligible for special ed services. So it's a service that has been provided to students who require it for since 1975. But for us, this is new. We will now be the providers instead of the county education office.
I get it. So it's potentially a smoother transition because they're staying in our district, they're starting in preschool, and then they're just continuing on into working with the same people, the same relationships, the same IEP plans, and like just potentially a higher continuity of care?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we're really excited to be able to start building relationships with families right away at age 3 when students become eligible for services. And the county has really done a nice job in serving our students, and we're looking forward to continuing that and really having as much as possible a seamless transition and having the providers be part of our K-22 provider team as well.
Great.
Also, CCP runs the preschools. The only contract we oversee is the Aliso preschool program.
Oh.
So all CCP runs all the other ones, the one at Maine and the one at Canalino.
Right.
So,
We have sort of a partnership,
yeah,
right?
So that's why,
Yeah. And is there any, I mean, maybe this sounds like, but is there any chance that there would be too many? Like, as having 14 slots, that's just a good starting point? Is it flexible? I mean, it must be flexible because we might not have that many students in 1 year, or.
I can speak to that. So you're buying a FTE, right? A slot, a full day slot, because that's what you would need to staff for, regardless if you have. Yeah. So they're basically ensuring that there's going to be enough slots for potential special ed children.
Right, for students with IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a continuum of options for students with IEPs, not just for preschool, but for all students, ages 3 to 22. And some, for example, in preschool may just need some speech services.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Others may need speech or some time in a preschool classroom as part of their IEP. And then other students may need more of a specialized program. For example, we have a student who participates in a program for students who are deaf or hard of hearing that's run by Santa Barbara Unified School District, who's in preschool. So this is one piece on the continuum of options that we provide.
Yeah, I don't think I realized that students starting at 3 were eligible for services.
Yes.
That's new information for me.
Special education.
Right.
Special education.
Right. Huh.
And then,
okay.
and then we're
It's good to know.
obligated till they're 22.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for the education. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move on to H2, 2017-18 budget discussion or reductions. And Maureen.
So you have before you a summary of what was discussed at last week's budget study session, and the reductions that are brought before you are based on option 5 as was recommended last week, and those reductions include a 1.0 administrator, 2 FTE teachers, and 1 FTE clerical position, as well as building in retiree savings into the budget, as we know the retirees. These reductions, I'll just state again, we feel are the farthest away from the classroom and the least impact to any disruption in our current educational programs, and they've been discussed very at length with the leadership team. They've been vetted, I think, now in 2 separate budget study sessions.
All right. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve.
I second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I had some thoughts.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to? I don't want to speak too much, so.
No, go ahead.
But I guess my first question, because this is my first time doing this, I guess I was expecting because we'd had the budget study session, I was expecting the budget this time to. So this is just strictly for the reductions, and then we'll see that final budget.
Right.
In June.
In June.
And
Okay.
The last June meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, and I sent some questions. I apologize that they didn't come in sooner, but I had some questions. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because I didn't get a chance to get an answer back, and it's fine. So just as kind of backdrop for these cuts, in terms of income, just to clarify, we received $1 million more. I want to go over the income and the expenses really quick, just to clarify. Is that okay? As a backdrop for these
As
cuts.
it relates to a certain document that you're looking at?
Just overall from the budget study session, just as a backdrop, because initially we weren't looking at making this many cuts, but these specific cuts have developed as a result of the last budget study session.
These cuts have been recommended since January, this level of cuts.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
The amount.
Then what were the 5 different options that you gave us at the last meeting?
They were different packaged options of the same magnitude. Some did not go as deep, and it showed that we wouldn't be solvent for 3 years.
Okay, but I guess the bottom line is what I'm trying to get at is what's the figure that we're trying to work towards?
So, as was brought back in January, it's not a dollar amount. We're trying to make sure that we have a 3% reserve in the current and 2 subsequent years.
Right, but
so an average dollar amount that
Yeah.
we're going to need to look at is about $500,000.
$500,000.
That's what the original target was.
And just because, and part of the reason I pulled the D9 budget item, the personnel summary, is because there's been a lot of, there's a lot of personnel things kind of up in the air right now, and I think that kind of potentially impacts our planning here as we're moving forward. If we're trying to get to a $350,000, or excuse me, a $500,000 staff reduction. Correct?
Yeah, the personnel. I mean, this time of year, you always have a lot of movement in personnel.
Right. Yeah.
I think I know what you're saying. You're saying that would we need to make these reductions since there's been some resignations and some retirements?
Well, kind of. I guess what I came up with is just the way that I work. Sometimes I kind of work backwards, And so I worked backwards, kind of going from a figure, looking at the different various plans that we had, and kind of came across a potential idea of a plan that basically gets us to the same point, but it's a slight modification of what we had. I guess I'll share that now.
Yeah,
Such as it
but
is.
I think Maureen wanted that last week. You know, if
Right,
if,
well,
if we were going to consider it,
right.
because she has to run it through her spreadsheets.
Right. Well, and I understand that, but I still couldn't help myself
Yeah.
in terms of, because we had, I think we had the study session on Tuesday, and then we didn't get this agenda until Friday. And so for me, being
we
able to read
recommended
it.
option. It was staff recommended, and it was
Right.
Direction was given to bring back option 5.
But without seeing the personnel summary is what really kind of like jarred my imagination in terms of how things, in terms of allowing for flexibility because of there's new openings, right? There's kind of new openings. So anyways, basically I based on the it's kind of tricky because without passing the personnel summary or approving the personnel summary, it's a little bit tricky to talk about things. But basically what I was looking is at the cost savings from the new special ed teacher retirement at $50,000. Saving $50,000 by hiring basically the two teachers. I'm not communicating this very well, but basically I feel that there's a chance that implementing this either alongside a hiring freeze or including a hiring freeze kind of alongside this would be a really prudent step to take at this point, because part of what, I don't know about you guys, but part of the feedback I'm getting around our district right now in terms of personnel is just that there's a strong issue with turnover right now. And I believe the turnover is a direct result of a lack of leadership. And my feeling is just keeping the waters kind of as calm as possible until we have our new superintendent in place, and keeping some of these vacancies that are already, that people have voluntarily stepped out of, keeping those vacancies open.
That's essentially what Proposal 5 does.
Well, but it's different because we were talking about the vacancies that were open a week ago, and now we've got two huge admin vacancies potentially opening, which is opening up potentially $250,000. The HR position
that can't go unfilled.
Yeah, I think some positions can be eliminated through
Mhm.
vacancy, and some can't. Like the special ed teacher is a very specialized credential that you have to have. So we couldn't move a regular gen ed teacher into special ed because they don't have the.
Mhm.
But I think that staff will look at the elimination of one of those teachers and see if they would fit into one of the new vacancies.
I've already built in 4 retirees for savings. This is one of those. It's already that savings is already in the numbers.
Oh, that because last time when I asked about
anticipated 4.
Right, but when I asked about the personnel summary last time, you said you'd already built those in. So I was thinking this was an additional.
No.
We've had additional retiree savings.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I think a hiring freeze would be a really valuable piece to this plan, because it's basically saying, I think what we would be saying is we would be signaling to the community that we understand that fiscally there are budget cuts that need to take place. And we want to keep the waters calm until, we have leadership in place, and put a hiring freeze in until August 1st to just kind of keep things flowing and not have any more disruptions or kind of chaos.
But that wouldn't a hiring freeze till August 1st wouldn't have any impact
with these cuts, like pass these cuts alongside with a hiring freeze on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think we have an item up for
We have a motion.
a,
We have
a motion, right? And what I'm hearing, you're proposing something new that hasn't been considered in the budget, and it's not up for a vote. So
Well,
I'm not
I would
quite
just
sure
say
the process of this.
because what we're talking about is budget, is staff reductions.
Yeah, well, these are all
So,
things we probably should have discussed last week.
Well, I didn't have the idea last week, so do you know what I mean? I don't think it's outside the realm of this agenda item to say to pass these budget reductions with a hiring freeze. It's sort of like what we did when there was a position that needed to be filled, and we altered it slightly to say we should fill it, but not until after Diana is in place. So
I appreciate the creativity. I mean, this is thinking.
well, no,
outside
we've done it before.
Yeah.
We did it before. We said we want our new superintendent to have a say in terms of how these positions are filled, because typically when a new
Well, they more than likely will, because these, I'm guessing these positions won't be filled until after our new superintendent is
right. So maybe it's just guaranteeing her the opportunity to have a chance to figure out her leadership team. It's going to, I think, by imposing a hiring freeze on top of these cuts, it might give her a chance to have even more flexibility in terms of working with the budget and her staff.
Yeah, I think our goal is to have as little impact as we possibly can on the schools and the functionality of the systems in place. And I don't know what that would do.
I think also this is the time that people are starting to look, and this is where all the movements in school districts are taking
And this
place.
is when you want to hire. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you postpone it, then we will basically not have the same chance as qualified candidates. That's the rest of the school districts
You
out
talk
there.
about
and
enrollment numbers.
So we're actually past the time. The sweet spot time has passed, so we're late on these positions. And just for your awareness and the public's awareness, the position for the director of HR closes on June the 9th, and I would imagine Diana would be involved in the screening and interviewing of candidates.
She doesn't work for us until July 1st, and I actually called her this week to clarify on that and just say who's in charge. So she's not employed with the district until July 1st.
Correct. So the position closes on the 9th. That doesn't mean that we interview on the 9th. And then the director of child wellness and nutrition is on, that won't even be posted till May the 30th. So
That'll probably close late June.
right. So she will be involved in both of those positions.
Okay.
And on the special education teacher, those are determined by caseload. So how many special education teachers we need is determined by caseload. And so that teacher's caseload has to go somewhere. It can't be given to other teachers or they'll go over the caseload limit. So that's why we would need to rehire that position.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Well, I think I just, unfortunately, can't get behind this plan, which is disappointing because I think it's clear from the budget numbers that there are challenges ahead of us. I think what I'm trying to say by trying to get creative and implement a hiring freeze and keep the waters calm is I'm trying to say that I think so many issues right now are a lack of leadership and vision, and that by sort of just haphazardly putting things in place, it's making things worse. Our turnover, our staff turnover is a huge problem, and I think for me, looking like at the numbers for the middle school, look at how many principals, the change in principals, the change in leadership really makes a big difference. So I recognize that there are fiscal challenges. If there were more, if we weren't cutting a teacher at Rincon, if we were imposing a hiring freeze, if I knew that clerical wasn't going to go to Rincon, wasn't going to be cut at Rincon, maybe I could get behind these. But as it is right now, the bottom line is at no point has anyone conveyed to me, either in writing or here, how this specific plan best benefits the students of Carpinteria? And I don't see evidence that this specific plan is best for Carpinteria's children. And
so remember, if we don't make cuts, then next year's cuts are more severe and will affect everyone negatively.
So I hear you, and I think I just acknowledge that there are difficult choices.
Okay.
You know,
well,
and I need to know that those are the best choices as guided by, you know, leadership and vision and calmness and clarity and a sense of vision, not out of a sort of haphazard, you know, which isn't to say this is haphazard, but I don't have the assurances that I need that this plan is the best plan for students, the students of Carpinteria.
Okay. Well, we've I appreciate that.
We have a speaker for this agenda item.
Okay.
Jay? Now? Yeah, right now? Okay. Be official, Jay Hotchner.
Very official. Thank you. All right, pulling up a document. I didn't expect you to be done with your conversation so quickly. Thank you. Alrighty, so I appreciate Ms. Claffey asking questions upon this, because the union is also very concerned about the lack of consideration beyond simply the fiscal impact of the cuts that are being proposed. And I'd like to share some of the questions that the union provided the district in the process of what is called a meet and consult process. And unfortunately, the district's response was generally non-responsive, but I'd like to just share the depth and the scope of considerations that appear not to have been entirely addressed. Question number one was, who did the district consult prior to making the recommendations? Teachers, staff, site principals, etc. The union is aware that there was very little consultation involved with the folks that actually work with the staff and the students at the school sites. Second question was, what data points did the CUSD examine prior to making the administrative recommendation it made to the board on January 24th, which it is continuing to make at this event tonight? Another question was, what data points did the school board examine prior to voting on their board recommendation on January 24th? And all we were able to find on that was questions that were asked by yourself, Ms. Claffey, and Mr. Delgado, that were shouted down actually by the board president to be told that this was a fiscal issue and those questions were irrelevant. Number four, what criteria was established by either admin or the school board to guide the district's layoff decisions? We've never seen any criteria established around this beyond simply the fiscal considerations. We've heard messaging that we're going to keep these as far away from students as possible, but we've seen no articulation as to how exactly anybody is going to rationalize that these cuts are far from students and from the teaching and learning model. Number five, we asked what percentage of the reduction in services is associated with hours spent directly interfacing with students, faculty, administration, and district families. We received no answer to that. We also asked what benefits the district identified in relation to the proposed reductions. I hear you also asking, Ms. Claffey, for the same information. What are the benefits beyond simply financial savings that the district realizes from such a reduction? What unique and or specific challenges has the district identified in relation to the proposed reductions? We've also not seen any lively conversation or even conversation beyond, again, simply the fiscal impact of the decision.
Thank you, Mr. Oshner.
Thank you, and I'll ask one more that seems highly relevant to us. how much money would immediately be saved by the proposed reductions, which you have fortunately provided us that. But of that figure, what amount would be permanently ongoing, and what amount of the savings related to the proposed reductions would need to be reapplied and spent to address district responsibilities that the CUSD is obligated to perform, such as expulsion paperwork, daily attendance, on a per instructional period basis, and a variety of other ones. And as the board knows, we have provided you the entire battery of questions, and unfortunately, again, we've received a very thin response from the district. So thank you for asking some of the questions you're asking.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving this budget reduction?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Measure U, and item I-1 is a upholding of bid protest by Derek's Roofing Incorporated and the rejection of a bid by Craig Roof Company Incorporated and approval of an award of contract to Derek's Roofing Incorporated for the Carpenter Middle School new roofing at the Art and Shop Building.
So moved.
Second.
We have any discussion here?
Just what happened?
It sounds like, based on the attachments to the document, that Craig Roofing did not have the license to do a portion of the work that was required.
That's correct. And also they failed to complete, per the California Contract Code, all the documentation on their bid.
Got it.
They were
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item I-2 is a contract with FCG Environmental for professional hazardous testing and consulting services at Canalino.
So moved.
For classrooms 30 through 36 for $3,070.
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item I-3 is a contract with the Fence Factory for fencing services at Canalino for $2,949 to be paid for with Measure U funds.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item I-4 is an agreement for professional services for DSA Inspector of Record and Project Management with Ernest Keys. Is it Keyes or Keys? Keyes. For the fiscal year 2017-18 related to Measure U facility projects, and the fees charged an hourly rate of $95. Estimated cost will be $190,000 paid for with Measure U.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have some discussion.
All right.
Maureen Fitzgerald and David Winiger have probably heard me ask questions because Ernie Keyes, is that how you say his name?
Ernie
Kai. His name is a recurring name on the warrants. And so it appears that we pay him $6,800 every 2 weeks. Is that correct?
We pay him by the hour.
Well, it's consistently $6,800 every 2 weeks.
40 hours a week. Yes.
For 40 hours a week?
I think it's 40 hours a week, correct.
Because if we're paying him $95 an hour, that works out to 35.5 hours a
Currently
week.
not paying him $95 an hour. That's the new contract.
The new contract. Okay. I guess my concern is just kind of, is he really, because I've worked as an independent contractor, and an independent contractor isn't typically someone that is on a scheduled salary for $6,800 every 2 weeks, which is what he has been for us.
This was reviewed by legal counsel and found to be in compliance. It's not untypical of a school district to have a DSA inspector that's a independent contractor. It's required on state projects and paid for by the owner. We are the inspection agency, DSA.
So it sounds like, the agreement will, this is per legal, the agreement will establish his responsibilities. The district will not control his day-to-day activities or means by which he completes his duties under the contract. He's responsible for setting his hours. I mean, I can understand, your concern, but I think this is a fairly typical way to handle folks who are contractors on a specific project.
Right. Well, I mean, when I worked as an independent contractor, I wasn't getting a nice paycheck every 2 weeks. I was submitting my hours and getting reimbursed for those hours. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on which industry you work in. I know, at least coming from Silicon Valley, having extended contracts like this is quite normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it depends on the industry. I'm not familiar with the
It's not
construction,
untypical
but
for a school district to pay every 2 weeks, or for a subcontractor or a contractor, independent contractor to bill like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved with other school districts, and this is typical.
This is typical?
It's typical.
Right. And the reason is just you kind of need someone on call, or why does he have to be there 35 hours a week? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
well, the state.
How is that different than just an
requires
employee?
to have full-time inspection on state projects.
Okay.
That's full-time.
Uh-huh.
And he's also working in the capacity of a project manager, reviewing plans, specifications before they go out to bid to make sure they're adequate, they're complete, and that we don't end up with future issues on the site, trying to eliminate that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what project managers do.
Okay. And I mean, $95, that's a nice pay. Is that kind of going rate for that position?
Low for a project manager.
Low for a project manager.
We were paying $160 in Santa Barbara an hour.
And it's high because we're not paying benefits too, so that's
correct.
Yeah.
But I think it just struck me because it, technically, while there have been some minor projects, the real construction hasn't begun, and yet we've been, his name has been coming up, so
it's in preparation for new projects.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've done quite a bit of work at the high school.
Right.
There's been $2 million contracts.
Right, but it's just required 35 hours of work every week, like it's consistent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just to give us, this has all been budgeted into Measure U as well. I mean, it wasn't like this is a new cost we're incurring as a result of something that's
right.
So surprise, this was all budgeted.
Right, and it
does sound like it is a lot of money, but
it is a lot of money.
But it's kind of the industry standard.
Right. Right. Clearly, I'm in the wrong industry.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I should have said aye too.
Okay. You're in favor?
Delayed aye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Delayed aye. All right. Item I-5 is a contract with Craig Todd Hainsworth for inspection services for interim housing, and that contract is for $3,900 paid for with Measure U.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then item I-6 is a contract with the Pacific Materials Lab for work at Canalino, CHS, and CMS. Contracts at Canalino for 2,000, high school, 2,000, two contracts for 2,000 at Canalino, a contract for 2,000 at the high school, and 2,000 at the middle school, paid for with Measure U.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second that.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item I-7 is a tolling agreement between the City of Carpinteria and the Carpenter Unified School District. Can I get a motion there?
I move to agree the tolling agreement between the City of Carpinteria and CUSD.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item J, personnel, and then J1 is a declaration of need for fully qualified educators, class CL 500 for the 17-18 school year.
Did you want to do D9 or
Oh, D11, sorry.
11?
D11. My apologies.
Personnel summary?
Personnel summary, yeah. Okay, let's talk about D.
Want to finish that one?
Yeah, let's finish that one
Okay.
and we'll move to D11.
I move to approve.
Can I get a second there?
I second that.
All right, any discussion?
Just a little background on this declaration of need for fully qualified teachers.
So this is an annual form that's required by the CTC, the Commission for Teachers Credentialing. It allows the school districts, in the event we are unable to find a qualified applicant, this allows us to have them on an internship or on a limited assignment permit throughout the school year.
And so I think it's 9 that we requested. Is that correct? And do we have how many do we have in the district right now?
Right now we have 2 on STIPS, which is a short-term permit.
Okay. So it's not like something we use extensively. It's just kind of a backup.
It is a backup,
Okay.
yes.
And the number of 9 just came based on like these needs that we have.
I
to fulfill.
overestimate because if we underestimate, then I would need to come back in the middle of the year if we didn't have,
Right.
if we didn't fill enough, or
Yeah.
if we filled more,
Right.
then I'd have to bring it back and do a revision and then send that to the state. So I
Okay.
always try to overestimate.
Right, and the 9 is for like specific programs that you can't just have anyone teaching. We need specific qualifications.
It's for single
correct?
subject, it's for multiple subject, it's
Okay.
for education
Okay.
specialists.
Okay. Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, D11, personnel summary. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just again with an eye to the budget, any cost savings or any information about. I guess the question I had as a new board member is just that this seemed a little bit dire to me in terms of the number of people resigning, but sorry, I'm so sorry. And then someone else was saying it's typical for this time of year. So how is this in terms of positions to try and fill?
In comparison to other years, it's just, it depends on people's, they could be moving, they could be, getting a new job. It just depends on their personal changes. It's hard to compare.
I think last year we were trying to fill about 30 positions at this time of year. We had an enormous amount of resignations and
2 principals.
Yeah.
This year is actually
It's actually
less
mild
than what it was last school year.
And then how many of these positions have been in the job for like 3 years or less?
That would be our .6 psych and our child nutrition and wellness coordinator.
Okay. Because I'm just trying to look at cost savings. Would there be a cost like for the special ed teacher? Would there be a cost savings if for that retirement, or did that already got? And the child nutrition and wellness coordinator, is that something that has to be rehired immediately, or?
Well, because it's towards the end of the school year, we could. We're going to post it on the 30th, so it'll be posted for about 3 to 4 weeks, which is the average time that I post a position. And then we would follow through with the paper screening and going through the process. So essentially we would try to find somebody to be hired by mid-July prior to the start of the school year.
So we're likely to recognize a little savings there for a couple months.
But
No?
let's qualify that. There is a need for some work to be done that
About the
I
consultant.
alone can't take on full time. So I am looking to bring in a retiree on a part-time basis to help do some of the technical certification and compliance stuff.
I think I'm just going to bring up the idea of a hiring freeze again. That I think before we, or kind of in consideration of this, and maybe it's not appropriate, but I do think that a hiring freeze might be something to consider.
I think that's something that we should discuss with
Or
staff.
postponement, not even
And then-
freeze,
and then,
but
maybe discuss it with staff and see what impacts it would have, and if they feel it's valid, maybe we can bring it up to a future meeting.
right. I would like the director of the HR position, the 2 district admin positions. I really would like to see held open so that the new superintendent could have a chance to really have a hand in that hiring process, only because she's going to be working so closely with those people that it makes sense to just allow. And I understand there's work that needs to get done in an immediate sense, but maybe there's a temporary contract position that we could approve, or if we are in this dire financial crisis too, I think any cost savings at this point would also be beneficial. So it might be kind of a win-win situation if we could, ratify these recommendations with, a caveat to hold off on hiring those two positions until maybe July 15th or something like that, or August 1st.
Are you making an amendment?
Yes, I mean, I if there's support for it, I can't. You guys aren't saying much, so I would like to see these amended I would like to see the HR position and the wellness coordinator, child nutrition and wellness coordinator position, held open till August 1st, with in terms of hiring, not in terms of.
I think your goal is just to have Diana part of it, right? Is that
right?
so
But
she has a.
But she's not. She's not an employee of the district technically until July 1st, and she's not even. I don't think she's, because of her transition. I don't believe she's starting right away. So if she came in just to give her a little bit more time to be part of that process with the people that she's going to be working so closely with.
Can I just mention that that's not the agenda item? The agenda item is the personnel summary page. So
it's just accepting the resignation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. All right. So any more discussion?
Well, I think just, because we're just supposed to ratify these recommended personnel actions, I can't necessarily ratify these today because of the questions that I have about how these are going to get filled, and because my real strong desire to have these filled by the person who's going to be directly responsible for them. So that may not be possible to change, but my feeling is that needs to happen, and so I can't necessarily ratify these items for that, and just because I feel like there's been too much turnover in general, and I think there's some issues with our staffing right now, and so I'm going to just hold off on ratifying these right now.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we'll move on to J2, the 2017-18 Code SPA. More lingo as you speak.
More acronyms.
A renewal agreement for human resources. So could I get a motion there?
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
I should know what Code
Is
SPA
that like a software?
Code SPA is. What's
It
Code
is a
SPA?
software program, yes.
It's a software program.
It's
okay.
a software program that provides products and services for all HR functions.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Board communications. Maureen.
Oh goodness. Well, let's just go back to last night when I was in my kindergarten classroom at Catalino, where Jamie and I realized we were in kindergarten together there up with Miss Conway, and history here.
I had Mrs.
So,
That's scary.
and anyways, it was the dual language immersion parent meeting, which was just, you feel like you're on the verge of something really new and exciting. And my mom was in the first kindergarten classroom at Catalino ever. And then we were at the Catalino classroom for kindergarten. So maybe it means I need to move because I just have been here too long. But anyways, it was so exciting, and it just felt so positive, and it just made me really, really more focused on learning Spanish better in order to communicate with my daughter and also communicate with her teacher and my, fellow people in Carpinteria. So I'm really excited about that program, and I signed the 6-year contract, basically imprisoning my child in the DLI program. So anyways, I think it's going to be great. And I think the parents choosing that program is the biggest vote of confidence that we have in our district, that we're making decisions that people are excited about. Because if people are willing to commit 6 years of their little kindergartner's future on something that's never even been tried here before, I think it's a big vote of confidence.
With a waiting list, too.
With a waiting list, yeah. So it's, like I said to Jamie, hopefully next year there won't be a waiting list, because hopefully it means we can just keep growing the program as the need and interest dictates. So thank you to Jamie for organizing that, and to everyone who worked on that, and just I hope to be continued. We'll just keep updated about that. So
Great. Thanks, Maureen. Michelle?
So I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but I went to the SBCC Promise reception, which was very inspiring because their keynote speaker was a former Carpinteria High student. And I'm so sorry I don't remember his name, but he was so articulate and so appreciative of all the teachers that he had in Carpinteria and all the support that he was given to get him where he's at. And I want to say that the SBCC Promise program actually tripled in the number of students that they had anticipated serving, but they were able to serve all of them. And so I'm just so excited for our students to have that opportunity, and it's wonderful. It was very moving, so.
Great.
thanks for going to that, because I got the invitation. I was like, oh, I can't do it.
It was very windy,
Yeah.
because it was out on the lawn.
I do have a couple of words. I want to say a special thank you to the Summerlin school community, the teachers, the staff, the parents, who have just put their protective, loving arms around my two very young daughters. As a CUSD trustee for the past 2.5 years, I've been in various controversial situations. This will surely continue as we face budget cuts and need to make very difficult but necessary decisions. It'll be unpopular and controversial to various stakeholders. I think the only way that I can do what I do is knowing that my volunteer position does not affect my children negatively in any way. And so far it hasn't. And I thank the school community for that. I'm grateful that they see me as a mom, first and foremost, a parent. They have kept controversies way away from my kids. Individuals have reached out to me to ask how they can support my children. That warms my heart because I know that they cut through everything and see the children first. All my children know is that mommy goes to board meetings in the evenings, and they have tacos with daddy. They've been eating a lot of tacos. Maureen, I think about your child as she's starting kindergarten, and you've started your journey as a public service representative of our community, and I hope that you have your community around you. And Andy, I think of your kids all the time. You have one at each school, high school, middle school, elementary school, and because of the age and their environment, I know that your children are exposed to many of the controversies that we deal with. They've read the flyers that are handed out in their schools. They're aware of the conversation, of adults' conversation. My heart aches thinking about that. We can say that this is the stuff that grits and resilience are made of. But I think as a community, as adults, we need to do better. We need to be better for our kids. So I want you to tell your children and Kathy that I and so many adults in this community admire their strength and their fortitude, because they are so much a part of your role in public service and your commitment to the community, and they need to know that. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Jacqueline. I will convey that to them. I appreciate the kind words. I would like to recognize, we all got sent this email, but it's an award on behalf, or to one of our school psychologists who's not a full-time employee. It's on behalf of the Central Coast Association of School Psychologists, and it's in recognition of and deserving of meritorious service to Catherine Carnazzo, who's a 2-day-a-week psychologist. And just a couple words that were in this letter to the board from
from Jacqueline Kanold. Katie has been an instrumental part of the success of Carbon Unified School District this school year. Despite only being at the district 2 days per week, she managed to run a social skills group, do individual counseling, complete assessments when we had a psychologist resign unexpectedly, and assist other psychologists in the districts with psychoeducational assessments and risk assessments. She was a core support member at our small alternative school, which serves at-risk youth, many of whom have social emotional needs. She demonstrated a high level of professionalism during many challenging situations. She's incredibly respectful of the professionals around her and inspires many with the power of positivity. We're incredibly grateful to have had her support at CUSD, and I know she will continue to be a selfless advocate in support of our families and students in the Santa Barbara SELFA as she advances her career at Goleta Unified. And it's just, that struck me because of how giving and caring and respectful she was to our entire community, and helpful with some of our most at-risk students. So it's just, I thought we should recognize her.
Thank you.
And with that, nothing for the calendar, I hope? No?
Do we want to talk about the June meeting, or
The June, yeah, the which one?
if we're going to
Oh,
have
we have to
it,
do the last
12th?
one.
Oh, the 12th. Oh, the
Or
second.
the 13th?
The first meeting in June. Are you here?
I am not here.
You're not here. Anybody
On
else
June
going to be
13th.
delinquent?
I have it on my calendar.
All right.
I will technically be here.
Technically.
Mhm.
Okay.
We do need a quorum because
That's
the
why-
LCAP and the budget will be presented for hearing.
That's the.
And if we don't do it the 13th, we'll have to pick a day before the next board meeting. You can't do the hearing and the adoption at the same meeting.
Oh, I see. Will you be
So
here?
I guess I'm the only one, so it's okay. So you got a quorum.
Rogelio?
As long as you three are here, then it's
Yeah,
fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
I will. I know we have a graduation out of town, but I don't think it's then. I guess, can we? If there is a change, can we let you know? Yeah. All right.
And just because I brought it up a couple of times tonight, would it be possible to add considering a hiring freeze to our
Future agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, obviously sooner rather than later, because it's not going to be relevant for very long.
Okay. I think that's it. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.